This podcast series is presented by Archetype. Archetype is an early-stage venture capital fund focused on backing crypto entrepreneurs who are working to accelerate the decentralized future. We lead investments in seed-stage companies and are always open to speaking with crypto-native founders. For more information on our team and portfolio, go to archetype.fund. This season of Cross-Chain Examination is sponsored by Talos. Institutional investors across the digital asset industry have connected to Talos to access the entire crypto ecosystem via a single point of entry. Whether on the buy side or the sell side, from Wall Street's most storied firms to crypto-native come-ups, institutional investors are using Talos to accelerate their digital asset offerings. Talos provides technology infrastructure that powers the full trade lifecycle. Talos' integrated platform supports the entirety of the trading process, from price discovery to execution and settlement. Check them out at talos.com today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Cross-Chain Examination. I'm your host, Catherine Wu. Each week on Cross-Chain Examination, we have on the smartest and most interesting people working full-time in the crypto industry to tell us what's top of mind for them. So one of the things I noticed when I first started working full-time in crypto was that people around me were taking a portion or even a large part of their paychecks in crypto. And one of the big questions I had at the time was, even if you got paid in crypto, how do you then pay recurring services in your own life in crypto? For example, the startup that I was just at launched a paid newsletter, and we wanted to integrate an option for our readers, most of whom who work in this industry, to pay in crypto. This proved to be an unnecessarily difficult solution to find. But because the industry was still pretty small at the time, it wasn't a huge priority. Now, fast forward to a couple years in 2021, 2022, which I consider to be the DeFi NFT DAO summer, all of a sudden, that's changed. People were pulling crypto into a DAO. People were leaving their full-time jobs to work for a DAO or contribute to a DAO. And the very important question of how in the world do you pay in crypto in a consistent manner became front and center. After all, our current world runs on Autopay. Well, it's a good thing that we have on smart folks working on solving this problem. Our guest today is Eleni Steinman, co-founder of Loop, which is a company working on the solution. Welcome to the show, Eleni.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
So I just did a long preamble setting up the problem. And I mean, Loop is honestly, when you think about Autopay in crypto, such an elegant, simple concept. And it's a wonder why it hasn't really taken off in the past before. But before we dive into that, I want for you to share your story. Just tell us about your founder journey. I know you were an operator at Blockstrat for a few years, and then you went on to start Loop. But so curious, was there a turning point where you knew you wanted to start a company?
Yeah, so I guess the turning point was when I was 8 and trying to sell warheads in the playground. So starting a company has definitely something that's always been on my mind. It just felt like the opportunity never really existed. I went to business school in 2016, and I went honestly for the stated goal of figuring out how I would start a company. And while I was there, I learned 2 things. One, no one was going to give me any money unless I had worked at a startup before. And 2, I needed some sort of industry experience. I needed to be the person that is the right person to build whatever solution it is that I wanted. And so in assessing these 2 things, I realized my background was fintech. And so my best shot at being an expert was something in fintech. And I needed to go find a startup. In researching fintech, that's when I found crypto. And so this was 2016, 2017, honestly, right before the ICO boom. And I was in love. I couldn't get enough of reading about how smart contracts worked, seeing how this could be the future of digital money. And so I'd never been to Chicago before, but I was excited about what Blockstrat was building. They were recommended by an investor, and I just went and left. And that experience honestly was the perfect training ground of how to start a company. I got to meet a bunch of investors. As you know, the ecosystem is quite small, and the best way to immerse yourself is being there. That's also where I met Shane, who's my co-founder, and where the initial problem that we realized needed to be solved, we found.
It's also during that time that I think I met you. I think I met you. I forget what year, but it was at I think it was at the Stanford Blockchain Conference, right? And then I know Ash met you separately. So a lot of serendipity to basically bring you back into starting Loop. And for listeners who don't know, Loop is one of our portfolio companies. I'm going to let Eleni tell the story of how this all came about, though.
Yeah. So after, being at Bloxroute for almost 4 years, I was ready for the next thing. And again, starting a company was on the back of my mind, but I didn't think it was something that was possible without having clear conviction on an idea. But I came to you and I came to Ash and we were exploring what my next steps were. I was explaining a project that she and I had done together and how much I liked it and how well it went. And I will forever be grateful for the opportunity that Archetype gave us to incubate. And honestly, without that space for Shane and I to step back and say, let's make a list of every problem we've ever had in crypto and figure out which one is big enough that it's worth solving and that we're the right people to solve, I don't know if we would have ended up at Loop. So for that, I'm thankful. But that also sort of explains the origin story, which is when Shane and I were reflecting on these problems at Bloxroute, they were a company that their customers were DeFi traders. So these are people that live in crypto, they earn revenue in crypto, and honestly, they want to pay for things in crypto. And Bloxroute had a subscription service, and it was a pain every month to collect that money from traders. And honestly, what you end up doing is you say, pay us for 3 months or pay us for 6 months. We don't have to come back to you. Because the only option out there is Coinbase Commerce, which is a checkout page. They show you a wallet, your customer sends money to that wallet, and then you hope and pray they return in a month to pay money to that wallet. And so, the light bulb went off. There's no Autopay here, right? The world lives on automatic payments. And that was something that desperately needed to be rebuilt in crypto. And again, from talking to Catherine, we realized it's so much bigger than subscriptions, right? Your payroll is on automatic payroll. Repaying a loan or paying your mortgage is probably on automatic. Paying off your credit card every month is probably automatic. And so we set out to build a flexible solution that could solve all these use cases, as well as maintain what we think is the most important feature of crypto, which is that non-custodial wallet and being in control of your assets, and then interoperability, being able to go to any application and things just work.
Given how just common, I'm thinking of all the subscriptions I forgot about on my credit card. It's probably too many and it's going to be embarrassing to look through, but just given how pervasive Autopay is, why has it taken until essentially this year, in the last year, for Autopay and crypto to really have legs to stand on again?
Yeah, so I think two things really put timing in our favor. One, just the market has grown. I saw a number the other day that there's 4.3 million DeFi traders, right? So that's 4.3 million people who are working in crypto and earning in crypto. And then the second of that is companies have now gotten to a space where they have developed as a product that they're ready to monetize. And so when they look to their customer base, their customer wants to pay in crypto. I think Nansen had a tweet a few days ago where they asked, who wants to pay for a Nansen subscription in crypto? And 65% said yes. And so those two stars sort of aligning in this moment that really was ignited by the DeFi, summer that we just had makes now sort of the perfect time to build that infrastructure.
So every early stage startup kind of goes through a couple stages. The first, obviously, gain conviction around an idea, prototype what it could look like, and then in conjunction have early customer conversations. But I think a pretty tough thing in crypto is first you got to figure out what segment you want to serve. So it's crypto native customers or kind of general, mainstream consumer. But as you were going out to find customers, did you have a list? And did that list end up changing as you have more conversations? Were you surprised with some of the customer conversations you had?
Yeah. So we started from this premise of, we think the future is crypto rails. You probably buy something and you don't know that the rails are crypto. But to get to that future, the initial customer base are crypto native individuals. So we wanted to build infrastructure for those companies that are, like I just described, already serving crypto companies, but in a way that will work when your mom is trying to buy something and doesn't know that there's like a wallet in the background. And some of those initial conversations, honestly, the thing that stuck out the most is the solution had to be adaptable to meeting companies in this like 2.5 space. So a lot of the crypto companies that are accepting subscriptions, it's not only crypto subscriptions, it's also subscriptions in fiat. And so we built our solution so that it integrates seamlessly with Stripe. So if you want to charge in fiat and you want to charge in crypto and you want that invoice to settle on Stripe and flow perfectly into your accounting systems, like our system works with that. The other sort of insight that we realized is there's a lot of different payment mechanisms and flexibility that companies need regardless of what the solution is that you're solving. So in the case of subscriptions, some charge a flat, $30 a month, and others calculate how much is owed to you, and that bill changes every single month. Or you pay per seat, or it's a credit card and they legally have to have you, repay on the first of the month. And so we also realized we needed to build the system so that it was flexible enough for any of these use cases.
And I think I said this in my preamble, but just thinking through the market. So aside from, I guess, more of like a B2C, which is whatever people who want to pay subscriptions, the B2B part or I guess like B2DAO, I don't know if anyone's said that term, is probably also like an area full of potential. I guess I've never thought about this, but what is this process of acquiring DAOs as customers?
Yeah, that's a great point. Right now, the process is actually, so we're B2B to C, in which case I think the DAO is the C. And so the largest use case we see is some of these DAO tooling companies, especially ones that are allowing DAOs to pay payroll. And so we can allow those DAOs to pay in any ERC20 token to their end employees. But we also allow for a swap. And so some of the feedback we got is people are really bullish on DAO and DAO tokens, but you don't necessarily want 100% of your salary in a token that maybe isn't accepted as widely. And so allowing both companies to settle some portion in USDC as well as end employees was a killer feature request that had been requested and, we built.
That makes sense. So just to sum up, sounds like you've built a lot of crypto native features, which probably is what sets you apart from, I don't know, you probably heard this before, why can't, XYZ big tech company build this? So aside from, is it the crypto native features? What else is it that these big tech payment companies can't do?
Yeah, I mean, you need to live and breathe crypto every day to understand the needs of a crypto customers, but also their smart contract work, their security concerns. And I think those are things you only have expertise in if you're someone like Shane, who's been building smart contracts for over 5 years now, right? And so we come at these problems from the perspective of a crypto customer. And while Stripe and you see some large companies offering payments in crypto, really what they're doing is they say, hey, take fiat, we'll turn it to USDC, and then you'll send it somewhere. And actually, when it comes back to you, we'll just do the same USDC back to fiat. They're not touching any ERC20 tokens. They're not on many networks. We're EVM compatible. It can often feel like they want to be in the space because they know it's going to be big, but don't necessarily know where to go. That said, we see the value that some of these companies have in the 2.5 companies, people that live or companies that live in both fiat and crypto. And so we made it compatible. So it's not an either or.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, even if you can do payments, I think recurring payments is actually a whole other issue.
Yeah. So, you have to have a smart contract if you're going to do a recurring payment, or else you lose the non-custodial nature of the wallet, right? So the problem is actually the killer feature of crypto, which is you own all your assets. And so that means you need to permission anything that touches that wallet, right? In Web2, you don't own your asset. It sits at a bank. And so if the bank wants to take your money and pay a bill, they can have a separate agreement to do that. We've replicated that, but instead of your agreement being a bank that has your money with a Visa network that can take it, it's you have your money and you have an agreement with the smart contract. And now you have full control over that smart contract. There's probably an underappreciated and underutilized function called the allowance function, which allows any crypto user to basically cut off or limit access to a smart contract. So the first transaction you do when you go to Uniswap or Compound or any dApp is you set an allowance. And a lot of times, unfortunately, applications will have you set an infinite allowance. And we don't do that. We suggest, in the case of subscriptions, for example, an allowance equal to a year. Subscriptions tend to be a year. Or in the case of a loan, the amount of the loan. But at any time, the end customer can change that allowance. You can say, actually, you know what, you can only take $1 or you can take nothing. And that is a new paradigm that you didn't have before, right? You give a company your credit card and like, they've got your credit card, they can just charge it.
I mean, the amount of times in my like early 20s or when I was in college that I've overdrafted my account without realizing. Yeah. Here's a funny story. So my sister had like and like, you know, with these cards, like it was a debit card actually, which theoretically once you like, you know, swipe to zero, it should stop charging. But like, basically what banks do is that like every time you swipe, even though you're overdrafted, they will continue charging it, but they will also slap you with an overdraft fee. And that's per transaction, right? And this was like done with no notice, nothing. And so my sister at the time, who was whatever, 18, she would go and get lunch with this debit card, not knowing that she already run out of money. So at the end of the month, what she realized was every day of that month where she overdrafted, they also slapped her with a $40 overdraft fee. And so that compounded over 30 days. And it was probably a very stressful story she'll remember for the rest of her life.
Yeah, so that can never happen. We can't take money you don't have. And actually, to go back to your earlier point, we give end customers, and you know, you don't need us to do this because it's on the blockchain, but you can see every subscription you have, right? So there's no like accidentally signing up for something and forgetting that you're getting paid every month, because you can always query, you know, Ethereum or Polygon and see those subscriptions. And we provide the nice little UI for end customers, and they can cancel and upgrade and whatnot. So
that's actually great. So we touched on subscriptions, we touched on payroll, we touched on service providers. Are there other use cases that you're exploring or hope to see in the kind of like crypto native recurring payments world?
Yeah, one that has come up a few times now is buy now, pay later for NFTs. So there's two different companies that we've chatted with. One that's in just sort of the pure NFT space. It's called Cyan. They're an awesome company. Basically, if you want to buy an NFT, but you don't have all the funds up front, they'll purchase it on your behalf. They'll give you a wrapped representation of that NFT, and then you can make a repayment. And an extension of this that I can see is like in the metaverse with real estate. You know, perhaps you want to buy like a piece of land in Decentraland and you can't afford it. Like this is the beginnings, the building blocks of that virtual mortgage. And one day maybe a real asset mortgage, right? But we're building those blocks today. Another buy now, pay later is Halliday. They're doing a similar model, except their focus is on NFT gaming assets. So maybe you want to buy an asset in the game that is in some ways an investment. So, you know, you have the item, it helps you earn more money or get more credit, and you can buy more items. And so they'll give you this loan and, you know, ideally enable Autopay to help with that repayment.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So the pay later is presumably Loop in the back end doing a contract call, whatever, every month, every week.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, that really doesn't help with spending then.
Well, you can.
It's okay. That's a me problem. I know that. The other thing that I think is interesting is crypto donations.
Yeah. So right now, just from talking to nonprofits in general, they tend to prefer, you know, donations over time than just like a one-stop shop. And again, because of how the crypto architecture is set up, a lot of donations just happen once, and then you sort of forget about being a good person, and that's it. Really, what you would prefer is if you could set it up and get an email reminder every month about how good of a person you are. And so we have a crypto donations like sort of checkout page that companies can use. One that's using this right now is called 4 Trees. You can buy 200 mangroves and, you know, help save the environment.
That's a good cause. And it makes sense. Look, like as the world goes more crypto, and you've asked me or Ash or whatever, any of us, we're bullish on this. So then it makes sense that eventually payment rails are on crypto. The things you do in your day-to-day life also needs to be built specifically for crypto. And solutions like this is super important. Have you run into conversations? So right now, I think a hot topic in crypto is the intersection of privacy, but also still be able to transact in crypto. And as we all know, crypto is actually horrible for privacy. Have you come in or do you foresee maybe certain DAOs or companies being sensitive as to who they're paying and how this all works, potentially integrating ZK? Are those features that you've thought about?
Yeah, actually, privacy has come up a lot less, I think, than we initially expected. But it's also a double-edged sword because on the one hand, the more information that you have on chain, the more Lego building blocks, DeFi things you can do, right? So if you can see all of your accounts receivable on chain, then you can get an accounts receivable loan against it. But if you're someone who you don't want full visibility into what those accounts receivable are, there are other technical solutions like ZK rollups that offer some privacy protection and still offering you that ability to do a Lego building block. I think we're not there yet. Companies are just trying to get paid. They're not necessarily super concerned about who sees it. And actually, in the case of DAOs, they probably want it to be very public in terms of good governance and trust. But in the future, I can definitely see it being something that's top of mind. And the good thing is, again, Loop is built in a way that it's adaptable and it can work for a use case that maybe wants you to use a privacy preserving chain or save some data off chain that has a proof on chain that it was valid.
True. And what's Loop deployed on now?
We're on Polygon and Ethereum, but are looking to add a bunch of other chains. And so actually people want to DM us with which chains they want. We'll definitely prioritize based on that.
Okay. At Loop Crypto XYZ.
Yeah.
Nice. So I guess last question is more specific to the product. So I know that I saw a demo. I don't know if that's live yet. So this is probably asymmetric information. For those who haven't checked out the product or who want to get a demo, where can they sign up for one? Where can they sign up for either to see it or sign up to get it when it's live?
Yeah, so we've been running a closed demo for the past few months, and depending on when this comes out, but next week we're announcing opening up that beta. And so someone can come to our website, loopcrypto.xyz. We have a short form to fill out, and we can get you onboarded to continue to test Loop. I actually want to give a shout out to one of our sort of best building partners, which is Web3 Alerts. They were one of the first to use us and just have been terrific in giving feedback about different features that they would like. And, we've done our best to adapt to those requests.
Yeah. And when users want to pay for a product, do you integrate? So for example, let's say you work with a DAO coordination platform. Do you integrate natively on that platform or do they have to go through Loop basically to make the payments?
So everything happens through the company that wants to enable Autopay. So if it's someone like Clarity, that's a DAO tooling company, on Clarity's website, you would see a pay with crypto button, and that would direct you to a hosted checkout page that is still branded for Clarity, but tells you it's powered by Loop. And that's, the only transaction you sign is basically given that approval to do Autopay, and everything else happens on the back end. So end customers don't have to worry, and sort of the tech is handled by the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just how I think we've seen the proliferation of a button that says sign in with Ethereum. I think the button of pay with crypto, we're going to start seeing everywhere. And it makes a lot of sense on the business front. Why wouldn't you, open up an option for your customers to pay in crypto? So yeah. Loop is your solution for that.
Exactly.
Awesome. Is there anything that is exciting on the roadmap or just anything within crypto space that you're excited about?
Well, I FOMO about not going to DevCon, but I'm excited about it. But I have a lot of FOMO. But I am very excited about continuing to onboard more of these beta customers, as well as this integration with Stripe that I think is definitely a killer feature, and the ability to settle in USDC as well. I mean, if I had to name 3 things.
Awesome.
Missing DevCon.
Well, awesome. I think by the time this episode comes out, I think your page will be live. And so Loop, Crypto, XYZ, Check it out, sign up, and get your customers paying in crypto on a recurring basis.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode from Season 2 of Cross-Chain Examination, hosted by Catherine Wu and presented by Archetype. If you like this episode, please give it a 5-star rating, like it on YouTube, and subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Also, make sure to check out Season 1. We have 10 episodes from awesome guests talking about all kinds of topics, from privacy in crypto to crypto regulation to many, many other topics that I care deeply about. Share this also with a friend, with a coworker, maybe even family if you enjoyed it, and give us a follow on Twitter. We are at CrosschainPod. DM me, at me with any suggestions, guests you would like to hear, and anything else. Thank you so much again, and hope you tune in to our next one.